Welcome to all of you. I'm Eduard van der Haas, Program Manager Market Intelligence at CBI. I will be your host for today's webinar on the growing potential of the European religious tourism market. Very happy to see so many of you already join into this session. I can see that we already around 40-50 people joining in, and we accept a lot more because we've had around 180 registrations for this webinar, so that's a very promising amount. Thank you a lot for that. First of all, a few practical opening remarks to start with regarding the functioning of this GoToWebinar tool and session. Please note that we cannot hear or see you as the audience, but you do have the possibility to ask your questions in the questions tab that you see on your screen. And we will consult these questions and answer a selection of them at the end of the webinar, as we're reserving also around 15 minutes for the questions and answer at the end. A recording of the session will also be published shortly on our website after the webinar, a few days after. And directly after the webinar, we will also send you a PDF format of the presentation of our speakers in order for you to share it also around you in your company. Please also do complete our short survey that will appear automatically at the end of the webinar. That will help us to increase the quality, of course, of our webinars in the future. If you have any technical or audio problems, you can try the phone call modus. It will be a toll-free and local tariff possibility also for you. Okay, let me first of all introduce you to our three very good speakers of today. Let me start with Alison Berg. I'm very happy to introduce you to her. She's our Sustainable Tourism Advisor and CBI Market Researcher. Good morning, Alison.
Good morning, Edward. Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today.
Pleasure is ours too, Alison. She's a co-founder of Acorn Tourism Consultant and our main CBI Market Researcher. And a sustainable tourism advisor. And next to her function for Acorn Tourism Consulting, she's also head of sustainability for the Tourism Management Institute and also an independent green destinations representative. Our second speaker of today will be Sebastian Plötzgen. Good morning.
Good
Sebastian.
Morning, everyone.
Very happy to have you. He is an advisor and consultant to tour operators, DMCs, and religious communities. He is a graduate in theology studies and also a pilgrimage expert. And he also used to work for a long time, more than 10 years, as a tour operator and led faith-based tours that he handled to Israel, Palestine, Jordan, and Egypt. So a very large experience also on the field for him. Our third speaker of today is Elizabeth Beirich. She's a product manager at Lotus Travel. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning.
Elizabeth is a German tour operator that is tailor-made, makes tailor-made journeys in Asia specifically, with focus on cultural and spiritual tours. She has more than 10 years of experience in the tourism industry, and she works closely with local DMCs and partners from concept to product selection, pricing, and positioning on the European market. So very important field experience too. Going through today's agenda, our webinar will last around 1.5 hours today, and we will start with a small intro about CBI that will last around 5 minutes, and then go directly into the market opportunities and the trends in the European religious tourism market presented by Alison. That will take around 15 to 20 minutes. And our second part will be more based on faith-based tourism as a relevant niche for your business. Sebastian will give you concrete tips about functioning in the tourism sector, and especially, of course, the religious tourism sector. And he will ask basic but crucial questions about your activity and if it's a relevant niche for you. We will then go to Elizabeth 20 minutes after that, around 10:50, and she will present us her company, of course, Lotus, and talk to us about creating spiritual and cultural tours for the European market with very practical tips on prices, on strategies to enter the European market. We will then finish the session with a last round of questions and answers at around 11:15, and we'll be closing at around 11:30. So to start with CBI and your host, myself, I will say you a few words about our organization, of course. We are the Center for the Promotion of Imports from Low and Middle Income countries. We're part of the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and we're actually funded and commissioned by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. CBI counts around 70 employees and is based in The Hague, the political capital of the Netherlands. Our main mission is to support SMEs from low and middle income countries towards inclusive and sustainable economies. And for that, we contribute directly to an amount of sustainable development goals. We try to strengthen the social, economic, and environmental sustainability of SMEs in developing countries by connecting them to European and regional markets. So we thereby promote and create decent jobs. We pay special attention to women and youth. We support women in management positions and women entrepreneurship. And we, of course, stimulate sustainable production and trade. Our focus countries are mainly emphasis on the Middle East, of course, West Africa, Sahel region, also East Africa. And we also have a lot of projects in specific Asian countries, with a total amount of 20+ focus group countries for CBI. We, of course, also cover much more sectors than tourism. We're a lot also active in fresh fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices. We also help SMEs in cacao and coffee sector, in natural ingredients for health products, food additives, but also health products and cosmetics. And we also have specific market information and specialties in apparel, home decoration, and outsourcing. Our projects, because we work with concrete CBI projects, are to identify economic and opportunities for local SMEs on international markets. And in these projects, we help SMEs and business support organizations to enter the European markets. So we work on long-term sector development from the perspective of a locally shared vision. And we make use of local knowledge, local experts to help you with concrete information and concrete tips to start, or for the most experienced ones of you to win market shares in Europe. And therefore, we offer 4-year expert coaching programs with individual trainings, coaching and market entry activities. And you will find the entire list of CBI projects currently going on our website on cbi.eu projects. I can give you a few examples of active CBI tourism in tourism. So we have, for instance, the community tourism in Ethiopia going on. We also have a Transforming Uganda tourism project. Uganda has a great potential for sustainable tourism and of course, an abundant natural beauty, like Ethiopia, with its wildlife. We also have a concrete project in women's economic empowerment in Kenya, where tourism also plays an important role, but also other sectors. And we have a specific tourism project in Jordan going on, from the enchanting coastline to the majestic tombs of Petra. We try to help SMEs also to discover the European market and win market shares for that. Our main resource still remains market intelligence, though. So we publish more than 200 studies a year in all of our sectors. Specifically for tourism, we go between 15 and 20 studies a year. We update a lot of them. We also choose for new niche studies every year. And for that, we give easy access to our studies on our website, because all of our studies are free of access, written also in B1 English, so accessible to all of you. And in those studies, we focus on export to Europe and products and services. We try to answer practical questions such as which countries offer the most opportunities in Europe for a product or service in tourism, what channels should you use as a religious tourism company to enter the market in your sector, what laws and requirements must you follow as a religious tourism company. So please feel free to use our free websites. You will see a lot of opportunities in niche markets, not only religious tourism. It goes from community-based tourism for some of you, to dive tourism, to food tourism. We also have dedicated studies on wellness tourism, etc. And we also work with opportunities in target groups, because we try to filter the potential target groups in terms of baby boomers, in terms of Generation X and Y, in terms of free and independent travelers. We also make focuses on millennials, on LGBTQ tourism, and also specific niches like solo tourism or multi-generational tourism. So please have a look on our website. By clicking on this link, you will directly enter our homepage and portal on tourism that you see on the right side of my screen. Looking forward to work together in reaching results, of course, in the next few days, weeks, months. I also encourage you to use our channels, CBI channels. We have quite a few of them. We're not only have our website, of course, but you can also join us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and also on X, of course. And you can also send us your questions, or today on the questions tab, or afterwards with our email information, cbi@cbi.eu. So don't forget to visit our free tourism market information portal. And now for me, it's time to pass the word to Alison. And I'm very happy to welcome you, Alison, in this session. And we will start with a little poll that we prepared for you as attendees to get to know a little bit more about your profiles and also about your geographical provenance. So the first poll will be on which regional destinations do you offer? You can, of course, on your screen directly click on the region that is yours. I see that the first responses are coming in. I see lots of responses coming in. I see from now that we have around 50% from Africa. 44% of our attendees are from Asia. Around 10%, 11% from Latin America, and around 13, 14% from the Middle East, and 6% from Oceania Pacific. So that's quite eclectic. Quite nice to see that your provenance is so diverse. What are your thoughts about these results, Alison?
Yeah, very interesting, and yeah, good to get a feel for the different places you're working in. I mean, certainly a lot of you are based in Africa, and you've got. It'd be interesting to. I think you'll find this very interesting to see the different types of religious tourism and how you can really pinpoint what's relevant to you. Sebastian and Elizabeth will be talking about different types of tourism and religious tourism. I think for Asia and as well, we've got a very strong representation of you that are selling from Asia, where spiritual wellness and is also really important, very different offer than you're getting from Africa. And I think around 14–15% for the Middle East, who I presume a lot of you are selling the Holy Land. So again, some real interesting focus, I think, from our speakers today. What I'm going to do to start with is to give you an overview of some of the themes that you'll find in the CBI's religious tourism reports. As Edward described to you, I explained I'm the lead researcher for all the tourism market information that we have on that website. So I'm going to give you sort of probably about 10 minutes also sort of highlighting some of the key themes that are coming through on that report. And in the summer, I think Ed was around later in the summer, July, August, there'll be a new religious tourism report on the website. There's one there at the moment, but it's been updated and that will be available later in the summer. So first of all, Edward, if you could just go to the first slide, thank you. So what do we mean when we talk about religious tourism? You know, how is that defined within the sector? It's a sector, it's quite a broad definition that it covers quite a lot of different elements of tourism, but primarily it is traveling for religious or spiritual purposes. And it can be segmented in two quite sort of clear views, quite in the way that people are motivated to take their trips. So the motivation for taking a religious travel and trip varies very much on whether people are traveling primarily by the motivation of their faith. They have a particular belief and that's what is motivating their travel. But also people are traveling with taking a religious holiday, religious tour, because they have a much wider interest in history, culture, or spiritual wellness. And these tourists may or may not have their own specific belief. So understanding that motivation for why people are taking a religious tourism trip is essential to be able to tailor the experience that you can offer and to create effective marketing messages. And this is something that Sebastian is going to really focus on in his talk in his presentation. So religious tourism could be it's very broad. I mean, it covers pilgrimages, it covers missions and worship travel, and also spiritual wellness. And the types of activities that these tourists are interested in can include visits to sacred sites, tours of temples, churches, mosques, or they may be interested in attending religious festivals. Next slide, please. So very importantly, the other thing to understand about religious tourism is that it's not just for people that have a specific faith, but many of the tourists that are taking these types of trips are cultural explorers or are searching for some form of spiritual wellness. And if you go to the CBI website, you'll find an interactive infographic there. And if you click on cultural wellness tourism, you'll see how religious tourism links with these two broader tourism segments. And that's very important if you're looking for trade partners and wanting to think about what type of trade partner is best suited to your religious tourism product. You may find tour operators that have specific interest in selling religious tourism, but you may also find a more general collection of tour operators that are selling culture with religious tourism as part of that, or wellness with spiritual wellness being part of their offer. Next slide, thank you. So thinking about the European markets, the European source markets, Europe has always been a really important market for religious tourism. It's been a very strong niche across Europe for many centuries, and it has a very wide mix of historical faith traditions. They're primarily based on Christianity. So what advantage and opportunities you have from Europe is that you have these large economies, with the largest economies creating obviously the highest volumes of outbound travellers, many of whom have cultural interests that include a curiosity for other religions, not just their own. So curiosity around Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism. So a lot of opportunities there when you think about this combination of a high volume of outbound tourists, wealthy economies, and this interest in religious and cultural sites and destinations. It's creating a really big opportunity for any business that's wanting to offer religious tourism trips in some form. Next slide. So the largest outbound market in Europe in terms of the total number of tourist trips and the expenditure is Germany. And amongst that total number of tourists, in 2023, the number of people that took holidays of more than 5 days was over 50 million people. So it's a lot of trips, a lot of outbound trips to foreign destinations for 5 or more days. The key markets that that are popular for the Germans are Turkey and Egypt. And it's also, as well as being high volume of tourists, it's a market that's very culturally driven. And it's one of the top motivations for German outbound tourists, a culture and having new experiences. So Germany has this mix of tour operators, some of whom specialize in religious holidays that are often led by a religious expert, while there are also general tour operators who offer spiritual journeys to destinations such as India, Bhutan, Thailand. And as I mentioned earlier, Sebastian and Elizabeth will really be explaining how these different types of tours can be designed and packaged, always with their different audiences in mind. And I really encourage you to do your research. CBI is a great place to start with these reports, but you need to really understand these different markets if you're going to be able to tailor your products effectively to them. So the next second biggest market is United Kingdom. It's the second biggest outbound market in Europe. It's got an adventurous market. It's very interested in local culture and history experiences, and these are a key motivator for around a quarter of these British tourists. And although Christianity, and specifically the Anglican Church, is the official religion in the UK, the actual number of churchgoers is decreasing. And in 2021, where less than 50% of the population was defined as Christian. And this is, you've quite a lot of countries in Europe, you're finding this, that, people have fewer and fewer people are having that sort of specific religion or defining themselves by a specific religion, but they do have this very strong cultural interest around religious tourism. But by contrast, there's a growing number of Muslims in the UK, probably now around 6 or 7%, and that's also growing in quite a lot of other European countries. So, there are people with very different interests in how they're wanting to travel. Like Germany, you're getting this mix of tour operators, some who specialize in religious tourism, while others are more mainstream cultural tour operators that are selling this broader range of spiritual wellness holidays. So the other 3 big markets in Europe are France, Italy, and Spain in terms of being the biggest economies. But these are all interesting because they have very strong Catholic. They're very strong Catholic countries, and France is really unusual in some of these markets, and in the last 10 years has experienced a very strong Catholic revival. Italy and Spain also have the highest proportions of Catholics amongst the West European source markets. The Netherlands, by contrast, it's a smaller market in terms of volume, but it has a very high proportion of travellers. The proportion of people of the population that don't affiliate to any specific religion, it's about 45%, it's probably the highest in Europe. But as I said, they are a very interesting market in terms of their interest in travel. They're adventurous, and they also generally speak very good English, as you can hear today. And from that point of view, if you or your team, do not have other European languages, it's an interesting market for you to look at. If you have an offer that's very specifically focused around a particular religion, you want to look at those countries as well. Don't just focus on the highest volume ones out of Western Europe. So, for example, Poland is a very interesting market if you've got an offer that's likely to be of interest to Catholics. Poland is one of Europe's most religiously observant countries, with over 85% of Poles identifying as Catholic. It's got a very strong tradition of pilgrimage and faith-based travel, both domestically and internationally. And the Polish tour operators are increasingly offering religious and cultural tours abroad, especially to Catholic destinations. And they're interesting in destinations that can offer really interesting pilgrimage sites, Marian shrines, or Catholic festivals. So why is this market growing? What is it that's driving that growth? It's a very valuable market. There are various estimates of how much it's worth, but all of them are well in excess of $250 billion in 2023. And Europe is expected to grow at around 5.5% over the next 8 years. So you can see this is a really important growth market. So I think the challenge for you is understanding whether you have a really important product that you can, and interesting product that you can sell to this market. And importantly, the trends that are really driving this are some of the major trends that we're seeing across the tourism sector. Tourists are increasingly seeking deeper, more meaningful connections with cultural heritage in the places they visit. There also is a real growth in the wellness, demand for wellness holidays, and the other key elements of sustainability, which are all major drivers for growth across the sector. And faith tourists, and those with a wider interest in history, culture, spiritual wellness, are amongst those visitors who are keenest to have really authentic and immersive experiences. So it's these segments of the market that are increasing, and they're expecting their trips to be designed on really sound sustainability principles, which respect the benefits that tourism brings to local people, the benefits of sharing their traditions, and really having benefits to nature and the local environment. So these are key general themes across the tourism sector. They fit very well with religious tourism, and it's important to keep them in mind when you're planning how you offer your particular product. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to Edward, and if there's any questions, please do put them in the chat.
Thank you very much, Alison, for this very valuable input. Now we're going to our second speaker of today, Sebastian. Sebastian, good morning. We will start for you also with 2 polls that you prepared for us. As you can see on your screen right now, we would like to know if you are currently working in faith-based tourism. And please let us know if yes, it's a key part of my business. The second option, somewhat, I've handled a few trips. Third option, no, but I'm interested. Fourth option, no, I'm not planning to. So please give us your view about this question, and you're currently working in faith-based tourism? I see that the first answers are coming in. We have 36% somewhat. I've handled a few trips, so some experience. 50% no, but I'm very interested. So more than 50% no experience, 30% some experience, and around 12% yes, it's a key part of my business. What are your thoughts about this, Sebastian?
Yeah, thank you very much. That sounds very interesting. Also in relation to what I want to talk to you about, because it is at least relevant, if I got this right, about 50% of our attendees who might be interested to go into that niche of religious and faith-based tourism. And hopefully for those who are already very active in it, please feel free to share your thoughts or ideas about it later after my presentation. And I don't know if somebody said I'm not planning to. That would also be fine. And maybe you will find one or another thing in my presentation that maybe might make you reconsider. Or if you stick to that, then later on let us know why you think it's not a relevant niche for your business. And I would say it is not the niche for everyone. So, and that's a bit what I want to talk about. It's a bit like, okay, what does it need to enter this niche successfully? And maybe give you some guidance there. So that's a very good start, and I think, and I hope that the webinar will turn out interesting for you.
Great, so thank you, Sebastian. Also prepared a second poll for us. You want to know what describes your current position toward faith-based tourism, and the answers that we are offering are: I'm already active in it. First option, I'm actively planning to enter. Second option, I'm curious but not sure. Third option, and fourth option, I don't see it as a relevance for me. So please give us your view on that. I see that a big majority is actively planning to enter, more than 50%. I also see that 25% is already active in it, and around 25% is curious about it, but not sure yet. Interesting also to see, Sebastian.
Yes, and there's a bit, the questions were a bit linked, as you saw, to each other. One is, and I wanted now to be a bit more personal, because as you will see in my presentation and from my personal experience, faith-based tourism and doing that successfully is a very personal engagement. So and that would be one of my key points later to talk about. Like, if you are personally interested in the topic, that's, I think, a key prerequisite to strive in this segment, or at least have someone in your company who says, yes, this is really something I strive for. It's not sun and beach tourism which you sell off the shelf. It is something which goes deeper. And so I wanted to hear a bit like, where do you see you personally involved in this? Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you very much, Sebastian. I will leave you the floor for your presentation. Anjani, did you make Sebastian presentator also, and in order for him to handle his own slides?
Yep, there it is.
Yes.
So, and all right. So, is faith-based tourism a relevant niche, and is it a relevant niche for you? That is what I would like to talk to you about. And the answer is not one kind which fits them all. It is something you need to answer in the end of this webinar, or maybe before, or maybe you have an idea, or maybe you change your mind, but it's something you can only decide for yourself. I think it is a relevant niche. You heard it from Alison's introduction, but is it yours? That's what I would like you to give you some things to think about, and later on also something which might help you to take your own decision. Who am I? Just very quickly, because there was already a lovely introduction. I'm a graduate theologian. I have academic training in theology, geography, and environmental psychology. I worked many years as a tour operator out of Germany in the DACH market, so in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, and specialized in study trips to the Middle East. And now I work as a consultant to tour operators, to DMCs in the faith-based niche. And I also work with religious communities in the destinations who want to manage their properties, religious properties, holy sites, churches, monasteries, better or differently. What I would like you to gain from this is, what is faith-based tourism? What is it not? What are core motivations behind the people who book these trips? And then evaluate if this niche is something which matches your business goals or your business values, and eventually give you some tools for those who are completely new to this or considering how you could begin to enter this kind of niche. What is faith-based tourism? Faith-based tourism is travel that is primarily motivated by religious belief, pilgrimage, worship, or faith heritage. We could maybe come up with many other definitions, but I would like you to think about from the key point of motivation. Why do people go on something they consider faith-based? So it's the base of the travel is their own faith. It's not the faith of the place or the destination they visit. It's not the faith or the religious heritage where they go, whom they meet. No, it's an intrinsic motivation why people go on faith-based travel, and I would like to use that for this webinar for my part. That probably is not really new to you. Pilgrimage, you might think of, I just put some classic reports: Jerusalem, walk in the footsteps of Jesus, go to the holy sites in Mecca and Medina, go to the roots of Christianity to Ethiopia, or go on the Holy Family flight through Egypt, visiting Coptic monasteries. That is all pilgrimage. Then you have those who just go, not just, but they go more for a religious study interest. They tour the same sites, but with a different angle, with different interest. So they line up a lot of sites in Jordan, Palestine, Egypt, Italy, France, basically anywhere in the world where there is religious heritage. And the third group would be faith heritage tourism. That is where you go out, the traveler goes out to explore their own historical or spiritual roots, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. So it's a bit different from pilgrimage because it has more that intellectual element of understanding where I come from, rather than I want to be in the specific site where something happened which is relevant to my faith. So why do people travel for faith? Like here in this beautiful picture, climbing up to the cave of St. Anthony in the Red Sea Hills in Egypt. So before you create a product or an itinerary or a campaign to market anything in that niche, I would say ask first what truly motivates the traveler you want to target, because that will give you a key to offer the right experience, to communicate in the right language, use the right phrases, terms, know what to avoid, and eventually build a lasting relationship in the niche. So that is all related to why do people travel? This is not what they want to see, to do. No, it's really think why do they actually want to go? And something I have always emphasized when doing a coaching in this niche is pilgrimage isn't about taking off any sites. There is tourism which is about that. The list of sites you visit, the more the better. But pilgrimage is about a faith-based tourism, about serving a deeper calling. So you must understand the inner purpose behind that. So sometimes there's one site in the day, and the rest of the day there is silence, meditation, and the traveler doesn't want to do anything. If you know that beforehand, then you can make a perfect offer. But while if you would list 5 churches in a day, he might say, well, yeah, thank you for the offer, but I'm looking for something deeper. So it is again about understanding that a lot less can be a lot more when it comes to travel motivations in faith-based tourism. Let's look a bit deeper into motivations. There could be, and I'm giving you some examples what you might find when you go into that niche and communicate with parish leaders, group leaders, bishops, or theologians. So one could be spiritual growth. So you could say like, I want to reconnect with my faith and find inner clarity. Being where it all began helps me feel closer to God. That's the motivation. the key then, the tricky part, how do you translate that eventually into an itinerary? So that is spiritual growth as the objective. Or a religious duty. Visiting holy sites is part of my faith, like the Hajj or walking in Jesus' footsteps. So you will encounter, potentially, or I encounter a lot of people that say, well, once in my life, I have to do this. That is not negotiable. One time in my life, I have to do this trip. I want to experience religious heritage. So someone might say, I may not be very religious, but I'm fascinated by sacred architecture, by rituals, and their role in history. So then you need to find that balance between that fascination and someone who's not deeply religious. How do you turn that into an itinerary? How do you shape it to match this motivation? Or a bonding journey. I'm going with my church group. It's about fellowship, reflection, and growing together in faith. So you see here, it is not so much about the sites or the places they go to. It's about the group experience, which is happening inside the group, inside your travel group. So the question is, how can you open up the right space so that the group can achieve that? Why does it matter for you what the motivation is? Of course, if you know the why, you can shape your tone, your itinerary, and eventually also your sales approach. So my recommendation always, and I would really say make that 100% always, what does your group hope to experience? With experience, you keep it open. You don't say, what do they want to see? Where do they want to go? Start with, what do they want to experience? It's a much more open question than the question asking for a specific place, site, date, festival, which all comes later. But first start with, what do you want to experience? And if you can narrow it a bit, say, do you have a spiritual focus, historical, educational, communal? So you tie it always back to the motivational aspect. So it could look like this. The sales agent on the left says, what's your group hoping to gain? And the answer could be, we are a mixed group, someone spiritual renewal, others are curious about the history. That's something which I heard in, let's say, 80% of the times when I was serving groups. They have both agendas. Some are more religious, more spiritual, and others are more on the interested intellectual side. And then you could use this answer to create something which I would call a hybrid itinerary. So it needs spiritual elements, education elements. You already hear that you need flexible pacing, because if there's spiritual renewal, people need reflection, then you want to learn. So make it an itinerary which has enough space, don't overburden it. And the tricky one, that is something which is especially tricky in the faith-based niche, if you are looking for the guide, who needs to, in this case, be able to speak to both needs. Spiritual renewal, so he needs to have a spiritual tone, needs to understand what it means, renewal, what means spiritual of this group, and at the same time is very knowledgeable about history, places, architecture, and all that. That's not easy, but selecting the guide is a very tricky one, I'm sure you know. For religious travel, it's even more complicated. So my recommendation, listen for the why, and then translate it into the how of the tour or the travel package, what you're going to offer. So why do you consider faith-based tourism? Alison already touched on it. It's a relevant niche, but let's turn it to more, why do you maybe want to go into this niche, and why could it be right for you? So my suggestion is to assess this question, is this the right niche for me, from 5 angles. The opportunities, what does the market promise? Challenges, which is especially, do you have the cultural sensitivity and the local partnerships to manage these kind of tours? A personal fit, I mentioned it in the quick introduction to the poll. Are you motivated and open in this to work in this field personally? Destination readiness. So wherever you're based, do you have enough sites, places, relevant locations which can serve the niche? And eventually, what you can offer, is there a market for it? That's also something Alison touched upon, where the CBI market studies offer a great first starting point to find out if there's a market for your product. Let's look into them a little bit more. So number one, the opportunity landscape. The opportunities of this niche are multifold. From my own experience, the most important one is loyal clients. Once you have a faith-based travel group and a faith-based group leader or parish leader, they come back to you with a high retention. So, which also makes it very complicated to get someone to switch from one operator to you. But once you have them, they are very loyal clients, and that I experienced across any market they came from. It's pretty predictable once you enter it. It's a structured year-round demand. People want to go on these trips regardless of season, regardless of the typical holiday season. Usually they're coming out of away from the classical holiday season, so it's a predictable revenue. There's organic growth inherently. Once you serve one group well, they trust the church networks, trust the word of mouth. The good experience you offer will travel, and people will come back to you and ask you. That's how I grew my business when I started back in 2011. That I had one group which I started with, which I knew personally, and then in that group were people who talked to other people, and suddenly the requests came in. Yeah, and the high trust value, because you're creating very personal journeys in this niche, so also your brand can be established very well. There are some challenges to be aware of, and that you need to be honest to yourself about it eventually. It's not just a tour product. It's basically what I call here a journey into spaces of identity, belief, and sacred meaning. And you already hear that's not the typical tourism talk from other like adventure tourism or ecotourism or sun and beach traveling. These terms are away from the classic of what we usually use. So you need to know the context, the customs, and what not to do. So cultural sensitivity is not only towards the destination, but towards the client. Access to religious sites, getting a spot to hold a mass in a church, that depends a lot on personal relationships, which you need to have with the places you are offering. And authenticity matters a lot to people who go on faith-based tourism. So you cannot stage a meaningful experience. And within brackets, I am for using AI to streamline work processes, but know exactly what you're doing if you use AI. Don't let the AI write you meaningful experiences. It does not work in faith-based tourism unless you perfectly know what you're doing and you can judge if it does it well. Otherwise, it kind of breaks that authenticity promise from the beginning. So I'm not against AI using it, but know what you're doing, especially in this point. And yeah, lately, last but not least, respect is a non-negotiable part of faith-based tourism. So language, tone, pace, behavior, you need to be really making small steps, finding out how do I communicate, how do I talk to a bishop, how do I talk to a priest, how do I talk to nuns. It's comes with a lot of sensitivity. So that these are challenges. They can all be mastered, but knowing how you deliver is actually more important than what you offer. So are you ready? Before you look outward, look inward. That would be my suggestion. The niche is not just about logistics, it's about the intention, the respect, long-term commitment. So if you look for short-term gain, I would say try another niche, not faith-based. So how familiar are you already? I've seen in the poll many of you are already, others are curious about it. So it's something to just figure out. How much are you personally motivated to go into this niche? And are you willing and do you have time to invest in learning, building partnerships, going to churches, going to masses, going into a mosque, attending a service so that you get the right feeling? Unless you already are, then of course this is a given for you. And fourth angle, is your destination ready? Faith-based travelers seek more than scenery. That should be clear by now. They want to see places that speak to them, history, meaning, and so on. And you need to have them. So wherever you're working, do you have sites of religious or historical significance? It's a very practical question. And are these sites accessible? That is a question about travel security. It's also a question about the sites themselves. There are some places where, for example, women are not allowed to enter. Marsabo Monastery in Palestine, for example. So that you all need to know, and in the end come to a good list places where you know you can actually get your people there. Do you have some connections with local faith communities, with guides who will support you in executing your itineraries? And eventually, is there a market fit for what you're offering? And here it is the question, you're personally ready, you're locally ready, destination in place, tone in place, everything in place. So is there demand for your region, or can it be created? There are some regions which are a given and others which the demand could be created. So where's your region in this? The source markets you already have, do they travel for religious purposes, or do you need to explore new source markets? And are you visible to faith-based travelers operators? Do you have access to these markets? Do you have some presence already, or do you need to build these ones? So just to sum this up, it may be a niche, but it's loyal, it's year-round, I trust. And even if it is small in numbers, it can be a very sustainable niche, worth investing it over a long time. So should you pursue? Well, I don't know, but I can help you decide. So faith-based tourism is a meaningful, resilient, and loyal market. It can benefit also the local communities and also local businesses who approach with care. So it's personal. It's not just managing your logistics, it's more than that. It's purpose, understanding, and your engagement. It requires cultural sensitivity, self-reflection, partnerships, things you need to prepare, invest in advance. It's something where you co-create your work with faith leaders, religious communities, which are all outside of the classical tourism service provider domain. So you need to be broader in that. And it is something which starts small, but it can grow deep. So authenticity beats scale, but once you reach authenticity and you reach your first clientele, then it will grow steadily probably, but it will be very stable. After this webinar, you're going to get a self-assessment tool, which I use with cooperators who think, sure, we enter this niche. You can use it and try it out, and go through a couple of questions and then come to some first initial results where you might stand. And eventually I can only recommend, don't be shy, go out and ask, talk to parish leaders, imams, monastic communities, experienced tour operators, look what they do. Or also when you are a bit further already, or you just want to have a professional sparring partner to talk to, find a professional consultant or an advisor in this niche and just play it through before you take a decision. Thank you very much. I hope there was something in there for everyone. And I would give back to Edouard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, for this very valuable input. It seems that we are also starting to receive a few first questions. I encourage, of course, the entire audience to share these questions from my side. But we will start with maybe a first question for you, Sebastian, from Amjad Sawala. She has a question regarding strategy in terms of terminology and definition of religious tourism. So her question is as following: having such a broad definition, my confusion for the industry in relation to segments is quite important. Wouldn't calling it religious and then say some travelers may not have particular faith and travel for cultural or history may seem paradoxical? Would it be better to say that their primary motivation is religious, faith-based, but they can do other things during their trip? For example, people visiting baptism sites in Jordan can be for history or cultural purposes, but their trip shouldn't be described as religious trips. That's a very important question, Sebastian. And what are your thoughts about the philosophy and strategy that we have to adopt in terms of definition?
Definitely. Thank you very much for the question and putting these things in comparison. I totally agree. I think there is in this niche there is always a core motivation, and the important thing is that when you get into talking to a potential client or receive a request, so don't assume that the request already is reflecting your the motivation behind the objective behind the trip. Because I had it a lot of times that I got a request and basically I could see, well, this is most likely a copy paste program they found somewhere else, or another parish has done it and so on. So if I would just take it and offer the trip, I would miss the personal connection to the client. So I would never know if this is exactly, I could say, okay, I offered you what you wanted, but is it what the client wanted? So I would, regardless where your entry point with the client is, always try to go back and find out what is the core motivation, and then build everything like blocks from there. So if the core motivation is pilgrimage, you find out that this is the term the client use, keep on using the term, and then build on the core motivation. And then you can add on it. You can say, well, would you also like this? Would you also like a day of relaxation in a Dead Sea resort? Would you be interested in, I don't know, go to the hot springs and relax there? And then you can make one step forward, wait for the answer, maybe go a step back, go into another direction, but never lose sight of the core motivation. And my suggestion is that initially do not try to label your offer too early, because then you put the client on something and say, oh no, this is not what I want, what they are offering me. And then you might lose the chance because he might not come back, or she might not come back to you and ask again. So try to keep it open and try to play back the terminology they use. So you have your definitions in mind, but the trick, I think, is to play with the wording you get from the client. And that only works if you, ideally, you have a chat or call without emails, something where you can really figure out what the core motivations are.
Thanks a lot, Sebastian. So basically, core motivation is the key for your narrative, as you told, and do not try to label your activity too early, and keep it open for a larger description and definition. Another question coming in also regarding certain niche, maybe for you, Alison. I have a question from Tarek Al-Akari. He specialized in halal, and he faces difficulties in defining his persona. His business is B2B only, and he's targeting the UK. And he's wondering if persona for UK tour operators who sell halal are challenging, and are there also studies, recent studies about the specific niche of halal tourism in the UK. Can you help Tarek maybe with a few elements, Alison?
Tarek, hello. Well, just in terms of reports, there is quite a recent one from Future Market Insights, and I think we can probably put a link to it into the chat for you, which is about the UK halal tourism market. It's quite recent, I mean, in terms of a segment that's been growing in the UK, but a lot of the previous reports you'll find will have a section on the UK about them, but they're more about the global market. So I'd encourage you to, do your research on Google and look for those reports. In terms of specific tour operators that are selling halal tourism, again, they are out there. I think if you go on LinkedIn, you might be able to connect with some people through that. Some of them are focusing on, I think if you go to the current report, actually, if you go to the current report on CBI, that's there is a quote and details of a UK halal tour operator. So I think it'd be well worth speaking to them. They deal quite a lot with inbound tourism into the UK, but I think they will also be able to help you with outbound tourism as well. So yeah, do look at the CBI report. As I say, there is a report that you'll find from Future Market Insights about the size and share of the halal market. Yeah, and take it from there. But it is about, as I say, getting on to Google. And I think on this, I mean, if you go to ChatGPT, you'll find some historic reports, but they don't give you the most current ones. So do look at Google as well, and follow up what you can from, as I say, the current CBI report, and one of the quotes that's there from somebody who specialises in halal tourism.
Thank you very much, Alison. And for the audience, please do continue to send us your questions, because we're, as you know, we will have a 10 to 15 minutes session at the end for Q&As. And at the moment, of course, it's time to also welcome our third speaker of today, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, great to be here today.
Yes, very happy to have you. Can you see actually my screen, everybody?
Yes, but now is Sebastian's presentation.
Yes. We're heading for yours. Yes. Yeah. Starting here. Yes. And I will put it also back into Dia for better understanding. Is this better?
Yes, we can still see the down part of your computer, but no,
yes,
yeah, now it looks good. Yes.
The floor is yours, Elizabeth.
Yes. Do we have some panel questions before as well?
Maybe you could start indeed with those panel questions. We had two panel questions that we've that you've mentioned to us. The first one is the question. Anjani, can you please go for the first poll? Are you a DMC, or do you currently work for a DMC, destination management company? That's interesting for us to know, and for you, of course, Elizabeth, as DMCs are one of your core target groups, of course, and
yes.
You will be able to share your thoughts about the 65% that say yes and the 35% that for the moment say no.
Okay, so that's quite a big amount already who are working for DMC. So I think most of our attendees know already what I'm talking about, and I hope still they can find some new insights for them.
Very good, thank you, Elizabeth. We also had a second poll. Can you start that second poll, Anjani, please? That was, do you currently work with the German travel markets? That's an important one also for Elizabeth, as she's based in Germany. I see that a majority of our attendees don't have current experience in Germany, around 60%, and still more than 30% have some first experience on the German travel market. So that's nice to see you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, nice to see, and I think it's a great opportunity to work with the German travel market, as we just saw in Alison's part, that is the biggest outbound market. So maybe this would be also something for you in the future.
Very good. The floor is yours for your presentation.
Yes. Just I don't see the presentation now. Can you share your screen one more time, please?
I already shared my screen, so the screen is shared right now and accessible for everybody. Do you see it?
No, I don't see. Okay, now I see another screen, but no, yeah, now I can see it. Thank you very much. Yes, so today I will talk about how we create spiritual and cultural tours in Asia for the European market. I'm the product manager at Lotus Travel, and also I will explain you how we work with DMCs and local partners. Our goal is to connect people with places, heritage, local cultures, and themselves. Next, please. First of all, I will give you a short introduction about Lotus Travel. We are a German tour operator founded in 1994. Since 2019, we are part of the Fitreisen Group with offices in Munich, Hamburg, Frankfurt, and we focus on tailor-made trips across 20 destinations in Asia. For example, India, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and many more. A second part of our business is Ayurveda, wellness, and yoga retreats. This is also always interesting for spiritual motivated clients. But today in this webinar, I will focus on the tailor-made trips with cultural and spiritual context. Next, please. Yeah, at Lotus Travel, we design private tours. Every trip is tailor-made based on the interest and needs of the traveler. So our private tours are with a driver and a guide, depending on the destination. For example, in India, our clients have a private driver, and then on the sites, a local guide will come with them and show them around. In other destinations, for example, like Sri Lanka, we have a driver guide, so it's one person, he's driving and also showing the sites to the clients. We are offering to our clients deep connections with culture, spirituality, and heritage, and at the same time making sure that we are offering high quality services and that the hotels which are included in our tours have a good standard. Next. Mostly our customers are aged 40 plus and are couples or solo travelers. It's always depending. Sometimes also we have families with children. In some destinations like Thailand or Indonesia, it's also family holiday is very popular. In destinations like India, it's mostly already travel experienced people who are going there, and then it's mostly couples or individuals. And our clients, they are culturally curious and open to spiritual connections. They're seeking for authenticity, comfort, and deeper understanding. And in the same time, as we are offering tailor-made tours, they value high flexibility. So in the travel days, for example, that's why they are coming also to us, because if it's like a group tour operator, there are specific travel dates, and at Lotus Travel we can make everything flexible and personalized for our clients. Next. Yeah, short overview of the customer expectation, what they're expecting when they are booking a cultural or spiritual inspired tour at Lotus Travel. So the itinerary should be highly personalized, matching their interests. And in the same time, our clients are expecting reliable services and seamless arrangements, as well as expert local guides with a high knowledge and deep spiritual and cultural insights. Of course, also important is comfortable hotels and tour vehicles. This is also an important part of the expectations. Okay, here now a short overview how it works from idea to itinerary. This is one of my key work as a product manager, that I'm doing a research to identify spiritual, cultural teams and destination potential. So I'm checking the market demand and making some destination research. For example, at the moment, I'm thinking about to add Saudi Arabia tours to our program. And so the first step is to make a market research. And then another important step, of course, is to find trusted DMC partners in the destination. A great way to connect is always at travel fairs, for example, like ITB Berlin. I don't know if you have been there already, but it's a very good opportunity to connect with tour operators of the German market, and also from other European countries. Also, tour operators are traveling there, as it is one of the most important travel fairs of the world. And of course, LinkedIn is also a great opportunity to connect between tour operators and DMCs. Then it's always helpful when the DMC is sending me some sample itineraries, so that I can have a first look at what they're offering, what would be possible in that destination. Sometimes I'm also bringing in some own ideas for new tours. Of course, all our tours are tailor-made, but still on the webpage we have some sample itineraries. So if the clients will find Lotus Travel online, they also want to have an idea what would be possible and what they can book with us. So they can book it exactly like offered on the webpage, or also book a completely tailor-made program with us. So the next step, when we found a good itinerary and DMC to work with, we are finalizing the itinerary for the webpage, selecting pictures, and doing the calculation, adding our markup, and then publishing it on our webpage. And the last step would be to do some marketing for the new tour. This I will explain later. Next. So a short overview, what we look for in DMCs, like what I'm expecting from them to start working with the DMC. First of all, the DMC should have an expertise in spiritual cultural travel, and also in working with FITs. So if it's a DMC which only worked with groups before, it might be not the right partner for us. So there should be some experience in working with FITs, and they should be flexible and reliable in operations. And it's important to have a strong communication and quick response time by the DMC. Nowadays, most of the clients, they don't send the request only to one tour operator. They send it to several ones. And if we send the offer to our clients, for example, after 1 week, I'm sure they already booked it with somebody else. So it's always important to be really fast and to send us the offers in maximum 48 hours. So this is also the key to work with us. Then, of course, the DMC should have a strong local network, good hotel rates, and experienced guides with good language knowledge in English and German. Most of our clients speak English, but we also have some who only speak German, and normally the German guides are possible to book with a supplement. So it's good if the DMC can also have the option for a German-speaking guide. Then, of course, it's also important that the vehicles of the DMC are comfortable and with AC, and a commitment to sustainability and fair practices is always a plus, of course. And the suitable cancellation and payment policy is also important for us. If there's a DMC who says like full cancellation charge 30 days before the travel start, it would be not possible for us to work with them because due to the German laws, it's not possible to charge the clients that high amount of cancellation charges. So it would be for us a big risk to work with that DMC. So I'm also always checking the cancellation policy. Next. Okay, now a quick overview what is normally included and excluded in one of our tours. So included is the private transfers for the whole itinerary in the AC vehicle, then the personal guides, or local guides who come to the sites with the clients, or optional, depending on the destination, the driver guide. Then the comfortable accommodation, it's always depending on the client's budget, 3 to 5 stars. Sometimes it's like boutique hotels. Some clients really want luxury hotels, so it's always depending on their wishes. We even have some like special accommodations, like staying at a homestay, where the clients can connect more with the local people. Then the site entrance fees are also included in the tour, and this is also depending on the destination which meals are included. If it's in a destination where there are many restaurants around, normally only the breakfast is included in the tour. In other destinations where the clients need to have lunch or dinner at a hotel, we directly include the half board or full board. And excluded are the airfares, other meals, and of course some tips or personal expenses. Next. Yeah, then about marketing our tours. As already mentioned, we present our tours on our website. So there are detailed itineraries. I will show you one example after. And also we promote our tours via email newsletter. So we send every 2 weeks a newsletter to our clients or potential clients. It's quite a big list already. I think we have about 12,000 subscribers at the moment. So the newsletters are in German, and here on the right side on the top you can see an example. It's always with different topics. For example, this was a newsletter about Sri Lanka, and then we are showing some itineraries, or also like Ayurveda yoga hotels in the newsletter. And this is really a good way of marketing, as we always get a lot of requests after sending a newsletter. Then we are also doing a lot of PR work, so we are also featured in print and online media from time to time. So now I will show you an example tour. This one, the Lebensweg Buddhas. Buddha's Life Path is a 10-day itinerary in India and Nepal. Of course, all private based, like all our tours, and it includes different visitors in the life of Buddha. Like from the enlightenment to the death, and for example at Varanasi, Patna, Kushinagar, Lumbini included. So the guided visitors, and also there are some spiritual experiences like the Aarti ceremony in Varanasi or the Ganges boat ride. And it's a full customizable itinerary. So some clients would like to have a extension afterwards, for example, a beach stay in south of India or Ayurveda cure. And the starting price is 1,185 euro per person. It's based on double room with 2 persons traveling together in the low season. So on our webpage, we always show the starting price in the low season. Of course, in the high season, it will be higher. Next. Here you can see a small map of the itinerary. So most of the clients, they fly in New Delhi and then going to Varanasi, and the tour is ending in the south of Nepal in Lumbini. And then some clients, yeah, going to Kathmandu and also making a small Nepal tour afterwards. So this is all completely flexible as the clients wish. Next. This is how it looks like on our webpage. So we have the itinerary on the webpage with the small description of the tour. Then the clients can see here the starting price per person, and then there's a button to send a request. And then the request will come to our sales team, and they are sending the offer for the exact travel dates of the clients to them per mail. Next. And this is how it looks like, the day-by-day description. So in the itinerary on the webpage, there's mentioned like what places and sites they're visiting each day, which meals are included, the included accommodation, and also the driving time and distance, and then some pictures which show one of the highlights of the day. Yeah, next. Yeah, and this tour, for example, works very well. We have a big interest in getting a lot of requests for this tour. And why we think this tour works well is because it's about storytelling and it's tracing the life of Buddha from birth and enlightenment to teaching and death. And it blends spirituality and culture in the same time. So it's attractive for both spiritual seekers and culturally curious travelers. And this kind of tour gives a very deep, personal and memorable experience. Next. Yeah, a short conclusion from my part. Yeah, we see for sure a growing trend across Europe in cultural spiritual tourism. And our clients are searching for deeper connections and meaningful stories. So it should be trips that inspire and educate and transform in the same time. And for tailor-made tours, it's needed trusted, flexible DMC partners who understand the heritage, spirituality, and local context. And for you as a DMC, or if you want to start working as a DMC, it's always good to get in touch with tour operators who specialize in your destination, or like, yeah, and to create some sample itineraries very well presented, because this is always a good idea to directly send to them a sample itinerary that they can have a look at it. For me, sometimes already it worked. At first I thought, oh no, this is not for us. But then I saw the sample itinerary, which looked like really good. And then I decided to start working with them. So I think it's always a good idea to create a sample itinerary. And then, of course, also to train your guides with cultural and spiritual expertise, so that they can give to the clients the right insights. Yeah, thank you. Next. This is already my part of the webinar. Thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, please feel free to ask some questions or connect on LinkedIn, for example, if you have more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for these practical tips and tools. And it was very nice to see that you were also willing to share your prices. That's very valuable also for our focus group of SMEs, that they have, yeah, they can know also what kind of prices we ask in Europe for this kind of trips. The importance of storytelling, of course, the focus you put on tailor-based tours. All these valuable inputs are crucial for our focus group. I also see that we received some questions also for you, Elizabeth, and also for you, Sebastian. So we can actually start with the Q&A session because we only have 6 minutes left. So let's go for instance, a question, a very open and large question regarding the challenges that DMCs can face and the red flags that we can see in Europe. Are there any red flags and very big challenges to keep in mind, Elizabeth, when you think about the European market?
Let's think about this hard question. To think about, like red flags for me to start working with DMC, or?
Yes, it's a very large question. So are there, like, you as a tour operator, do you often see red flags that you give to your local partners? Are there specific niches or fields that you say, no, that will be impossible to do with our German customers?
Yeah. One thing which is like really difficult for us, I saw it now in the last months, that some DMCs have like really strict cancellation policy, and I think I mentioned it already a bit. This is always like really hard for us to work with them if they charging a high amount of cancellation fees. So this would be something for us which is really not possible to start working with them. And in the same, of course, with the payment policy as well. If they are want to have like full charge already 60 days in advance, also this would be a point that we can't work with them. So they should be a bit flexible about this for sure.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Maybe a question for you, Sebastian. Are there any specific requirements or regulations to keep in mind for our focus group of SMEs when they think about the European market?
Well, it's important to understand that the European market is regulated by the European Package Travel Directive. So that is like the framework under which everybody who offers tourism in Europe and out of Europe has to work by. And it's mainly made as a customer protection regulation. So it gives customers a lot of options to get their rights. And this is not negotiable. As much as we would like as tour operators to be more flexible, it's not. So I can only encourage, it's a complicated one, the whole thing, but talk to your clients in Europe, get a copy of it and look into it, or look into an abbreviated part, but that is mandatory for any operator in Europe and for anyone selling in Europe to look at. So that is homework you should do on the legal side, and it's the base which you have to abide by.
Thank you, Sebastian. Another very practical question regarding the tools and ways to enter the European market. ITB in Berlin. Can Sebastian, can you tell us a bit more about ITB and the importance of this trade fair for beginners and experienced religious tourism?
Just very briefly, I mean, ITB is, you know, it's the largest tourism fair in the world, and it is highly appreciated for it. On the other hand, it is one of many tourism fairs. It's not like when you go to ITB or even when you have a booth there, then business will strive. That is not the case. In ITB, you have the huge tour operators, you have booths which are worth millions of money, which is spent there. So it's competition all through. And so don't go with your own small booth unless you go under an umbrella, like with a shared booth, which CBI, for example, offers opportunities to go there. But don't invest too much. I would say as a small operator, as an SME, go as a visitor, use the online tools, do your research and your homework 2 months before, log in, make a profile, contact people and use it to gather intelligence basically about your market, about offers and so on. And therefore it's great because you have all the countries in the world there, but do not invest too much from your own side. Rather go as a visitor and then make use out of who's there instead of standing in one location and waiting for people to come, because therefore it's too big and too competitive.
Yeah,
thank you, Sebastian.
For ITB also, it's important that you start early to send meeting requests to the tour operators, because all our schedules for ITB are very, very busy. And I think it's the best to start already in December or latest by January to send the meeting request, because ITB is beginning of March. And if I'm getting some meeting requests mid of February, my schedule is already completely fully booked. So better be early, because then the tour operators still have a lot of meeting spots. Yeah, so that's also important.
Yeah, and can I just add as well, I think in answer to the last couple of questions around the European market and, you know, red flags, you know, European regulation, and also the trade shows like ITB. I think first of all on the red flags, I mean, one general thing about European market, it's highly valuable, it's also very sensitive, and security is absolutely key to, you know, to people traveling to destinations, feeling a sense of security. And if you're in a destination that's quite volatile for whatever reason, obviously you don't have control over that, but what you do have control over is your communication about the current situation, and that builds trust. So, you know, understanding what's going on around you, what's happening, where people can find out more information, you know, do share that with on your website. If, you know, just showing that you're up to speed with it, you know the situation. And then I'd point you again to the CBI website on tourism market information. There's a section there called Building Your Business, and that's got information about the European market, how to prepare. It's got information about the European package travel directive, which Sebastian was referring to. It's got information about how to prepare your product for the European market. If you feel that these reports are quite long, and I know that a lot of people struggle, initially to come to grips with them, you can download them and you can upload them to ChatGPT and ask your questions of those reports. We've done quite a lot of work playing around with this, trying to find easy ways for people to really get the maximum out of these reports. But, you can take that report, upload it, think about the prompts that you want to use to find information in there, and help that for you to build your knowledge base as well.
Thank you, Alison. It's great to hear all those tips, of course. Unfortunately, it's 11:32, and before we end this very interesting session on religious tourism, we would like to know if actually you learned a little about the markets in Europe, and we have a last poll for you that we're offering. So after this webinar, how do you now see faith-based tourism for your business? So we were very interested in seeing your results about this. And first option, yes, I'm already active and it will keep going. Second option, I'm already active and learned something new today. Third option, I'm actively planning to enter. Fourth option, I don't see it as relevant for me. And last option, I've decided it's not for my business at all. So very curious to see the results. I see that I'm already active and learned something new today, and I'm actively planning to enter and learned a lot, are the two answers that are the most present, with more than 40% and 50%. That's very good to see. Your first feedback and response, Sebastian, seeing those statistics?
I'm very happy. It's always good if we could make people think, learn, be curious, and yeah, very good, very happy. Thank you all for attending, and keep thinking and make your choices. If this is your niche or not, it's your decision in the end.
Elizabeth, would you also like to say a few closing words from your side?
Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. It was great to be here today, and I hope you learned something. And yeah, if you have some more questions, also you can send a mail or connect on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to help.
And Alison, our main market researcher in tourism, your last words about this session?
Yes, I think the key point there, I think the one that underpins everything we've heard today is, how Sebastian put it, from the why to the how, really understanding why somebody is traveling, what their ambition is, what they want to get out of their trip, and then you can turn that into a product that they want to buy and is going to interest them. And Elizabeth, really highlighted that as well, really understanding her clients to know how you can provide a trip and a tour that's going to interest those people. And the more you understand that in advance, the more you can really target your marketing efforts to both the trade partners and to consumers directly, and spend your budgets more effectively. So yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you, Alison, and thanks a lot also to Elizabeth and Sebastian. Just before we end this session, please also keep in mind that we will share this webinar and presentation in the upcoming days with you. So all attendees will receive a PDF version of the presentation of our speakers, and you will also find this webinar on our CBI website very shortly. If you can also fill out the survey that is going to appear on your screen after this webinar, that will be also very nice for us in order to gain, of course, ideas for upcoming webinars. And that's it for us now. So hope to see you soon on our website or in one of our future webinars or CBI projects. And on behalf of Alison, Sebastian, And Elizabeth, we wish you a very nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.